thanks for that introduction. So yeah, I'm Christina Robinson from Green Umbrella Marketing. We have been working the last 11 years. Green Umbrella has been helping recruiters that lack the time, the enthusiasm, or perhaps even the courage to make social media and online marketing work for them. So I'd like to think I'm in a good place to be able to offer you a few sort of hints and tips along the way today. Now, we were expecting a mix of sort of people on the call. So some of you might be part of a bigger recruitment agency and, you know, you kind of like you're the marketing function. Some of you might be solo recruiters. Some of you might just be starting up. Some of you might be established. So hopefully I'm going to have something for everyone in this. What I would ask you to do, basically, I'm going to power through the content. As we're going along, any questions that you've got, just pop them into the chat. If you can pop them in so everyone can see them, that would be fantastic. We'll get through the content as quickly as possible and then we'll come through and revisit the questions. I have got the chat box open though, so if as the questions come through, if there's something I can kind of spot in my peripheral that I can build into the content, I'll do that for you anyway. And also, feel free to interrupt me at any point, okay? We've got like the group today is not so big that we can't actually make it a bit more interactive. So more than happy if there's something you want me to just go back and explain that bit again because I've rambled and I've not been very clear, just speak up. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to dive into the slides. As a marketer, I like to have a little bit of a brief. So today I'm going to go through some key questions you need to be asking in order to find success in what you're doing social media wise. I'm going to give you some guidance in terms of platform usage as well, because it's so easy to think you need to be everywhere and that's simply not the case. And I'm going to give you some advice in terms of making the right content choices. So it's really easy to just kind of like keep throwing content out there, but we really need to be quite considerate of what we're sharing as well. And finally, I want you to really leave this call with a really good understanding of the social media algorithms and therefore how you can not get too weighed down in what the algorithms are and all the little, you know, should I put a link here and how many hashtags there and that sort of stuff, but have enough of an understanding that whatever you do going forward, you know you're doing it with the algorithms on your side. Okay. So at this point, I just want to ask you if there is anything else you're hoping to get out of today that isn't on that screen, pop it in the chat. Okay, and you know, if there's a specific question that you're thinking, I'd really like to get the answer to that today, pop it in the chat now. And like I said, you know, at least that way at the end, if there's anything we haven't covered, we're going to have some specific questions there that we can revisit. Okie dokie. So first thing I really want to talk to you about, a lot of people dive into social and they're not objective is. When you're putting a marketing plan together for your business, you will have some core objectives, okay, some core goals you want to achieve. But actually, from a social media platform perspective, as you start to drill down, it's really important you understand what it is you want from each platform you're active on. Now, like I said, there's loads of different platforms. You might choose to use Instagram, you might not. You might choose to use Facebook, you might not. But the reality is, you know, every agency I've ever worked with, they're marketing to candidates, they're marketing to clients, or they're marketing to both. Okay, and each channel, it's like, you know, are we going to find our clients on Instagram? So, sometimes yes, but more often than not, no. From a LinkedIn perspective, are we going to find our candidates there? Again, we've kind of got like a bit of a 70-30 mix in terms of whether the answer is yes or no. So we really need to think platform by platform, what's the objective? And there's a few things that kind of crop up again and again when we're talking to recruiters. So first of all, obviously, they want to fill vacancies. Okay, using Facebook, I want to be able to get candidates that I know I can place. But sometimes we're kind of thinking about talent pooling as well. We know we can speak to an audience and we can nurture that audience. They might not be candidates in our CRM right now, but there are people we can nurture that will be our future candidates, or have the potential of introducing future candidates to us. Sometimes it's just about maintaining that loyalty, building loyalty, gaining retention, and that's both on a client and a candidate side as well. I'm working with one business at the minute that they recruit for marine. They're using LinkedIn, but they don't want any more business. They're a solo recruiter, and right now all they want to use LinkedIn for is to make sure that they're managing their brand, maintaining a level of perception that the business is active and that they're doing well, and keep that loyalty of their client base. And they're having lapsed clients come back to them because of that LinkedIn activity, because we're able to keep in touch in that way. Sometimes it might be to do with reputation management. Now, unfortunately, recruiters can get a bit of a bad rap, let's say, on the social media platforms. And if you're perhaps you've come into an existing business that's had some issues in the past, maybe there's a bit of reputation management that needs to happen there as well. If your Google reviews are not great, you might want to be using your social media to kind of evidence the fact that you are a 5-star business rather than a 2.5-star business. Brand awareness is another obvious one that you might be using your social media for. If we use T-Boss as an example, the activity on Facebook for T-Boss is very much about brand awareness. Okay, we want to be creating as many touch points as we can so that people remember, there's that little bit in your memory that remembers T-Boss. That's who you go to for your back office. When it comes to anything accountancy-wise in your business, T-Boss is who you need to talk to. Okay, where do you get your groceries from? You've probably thought of a supermarket, Tesco's, Waitrose, Lidl, Aldi, but Sainsbury's, whatever it is. We want to create that little bit in someone's memory that when they go, oh, I really need to talk to a recruiter, this is the recruiter you need to talk to. Sometimes all we really want from that particular platform is to drive traffic back to our website. Okay, and I think this is one of the core ones really for recruiters. Actually, if you've got a website that's rocking, it's set up for Google for Jobs, you've got lots of things on there to generate leads, whether it's client leads through downloads or candidate leads through their ability to register with you through the website, that kind of stuff. Fresh content on there, your blogs, that you might have video content that's being hosted on your website. So actually, the more you can get people back to that place that you own, the more you're able to get further data from them, like their email addresses. What would happen to your business if LinkedIn closed its doors tomorrow? How much data would your business lose? Okay, because you don't, all those connections, all those followers on a company page, you don't own that. But actually, what you've got in your database, that you have ownership of that. So the more we can drive traffic back and gain that data that way, the better. Okay, sometimes you just need a bit of reassurance marketing. Okay, I would use Green Umbrella as an example of this. We use Instagram as a digital marketing agency specializing in social media. If you were thinking of using us and you're doing your due diligence and you come to Instagram, which is like it's one of the big 4, you could argue it's now one of the big 3 in terms of social media. If we weren't active on Instagram, you'd be thinking, do they know their stuff? A social media agency that doesn't use Instagram, that doesn't make sense. Okay, the reality is I'm not going to get any business out of Instagram, but it is a reassurance tool. We have one objective from that platform. Okay, so like I say, sometimes it is just actually, we don't need to put a lot of effort into that social media platform, but we do need to have a presence there, and it is a bit of a box ticking exercise, I admit, in that situation. But like I said, that might be important for your business. Sometimes you just want to keep an eye on your competition. Okay, and this is, I don't want you to be spending time every day or every week even spying on the competition through your social platforms. But again, this could be another objective that you want to assign to a specific platform. Obviously, we can use these platforms to source you new opportunities as well. Has anyone seen in the news this morning, Deliveroo have announced something? They're going to be introducing like thousands of jobs again, because of some of the tech development they're doing in the UK. And it's like, if you think supply chain, like even if you're in construction, okay, it's like, actually, okay, so where are they good? Where are these people going to be based? Are there sort of, if I think back, it's a few years now, but when Meadowhall in Sheffield announced sort of like this massive multi-million-pound investment, and they were going to double the place inside, you've got lots of retailers going, fantastic, we can move into Meadowhall, but you've got loads of people in the construction industry and fit-out industries going, you know, someone needs to build these things, someone needs to paint those walls. So actually, sometimes it could be you're using the social media platform so that you can monitor what's happening in your sector, or the things that are going to affect your sector from a supply chain perspective. And finally, sometimes actually we want to use this social media platform because we want to make sure we're fully prepared for our client meetings. Instagram's not the platform for us, but we know it's a key platform for our clients. What kind of content are they putting out? What campaigns are they working on at the minute? So that when we're having those conversations with our client, we know what the crack is. Okay. So I have a list of, I've picked the 10 most relevant to recruiters for this slide, but I have a list of like 15, 20 objectives that most people want to achieve through their social media platforms. And what we suggest you do is you actually pick 3 from the list. Okay, and you just really focus. Everything you do is about achieving those 3 objectives. Because if we try and achieve everything, then we end up with a content strategy that's kind of all over the place. Okay, and the kind of like the wins that we're making, the progress that we make is much slower. Whereas if we can just focus on 3 objectives for each platform, and there will be crossover. It might be that all of your social media platforms you want to use to send traffic to your website. Okay, but picking 3, that is a good place to be. Okay, but which channels should you be using? So if we think about Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, is anyone using 4 or more platforms? How many social media platforms are you using? Just hold up your fingers. 5, 4, 4, 2, 5. Stuart's like, I'm everywhere. Stuart hasn't got enough fingers. Cool. Okay, so sometimes we fall into this trap of we need to be everywhere. So we put all of this effort in equal measure into every single platform. So you've got to think like our ideal client, our ideal candidate, where are they going to be hanging out, and work from there. What's on this slide right now, and you'll have access to the recording and to the slides. This is UK data. This is a report from Hootsuite, which is one of the biggest social media scheduling tools globally. They do a report that they update on a quarterly basis. This data is, I haven't had the most up-to-date data published yet, but just looking at people in the UK, quite often when you see these stats, it's on a global level, but just UK-wise, just under 80% of people 16 and over in the UK are using YouTube, 73% on Facebook, okay? The next 2 are WhatsApp and Messenger. Then we go to Instagram at 52%, and Instagram is growing. Okay, about, I'd say 3-4 years ago, this was at about 42, 41, 42%. So Instagram is growing. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, you know, should I use Instagram for my recruitment business? I'd be like, nah, don't bother. Okay, whereas now, actually, especially if you're focusing on early careers, actually Instagram's a really good place to be, or it's a really good place to encourage your clients to be, so that they can communicate their employer brand. You know, Facebook, roughly 73%. A couple of years ago, that was like 79. So we are seeing this trend of the audience moving between Facebook and Instagram. Twitter's held pretty steady at about 44% of us being active on that platform. LinkedIn, although as a recruiter, this is always like, there's very few recruiters where LinkedIn isn't their most important platform, but right now, 28% of users in the UK 16 or over are on that platform. Okay, so we've got to think like strategically, being active on LinkedIn is a no-brainer, right? We know that our candidates are there for more often than not for a specific reason. But when you think about your other platforms, you know, a lot of people kind of pass by Facebook and think, oh yeah, my audience isn't on there. But if you think about, you know, people know people who know people who know people, you know, if we got 100 people in the room, 73 of them are going to be on Facebook. And if I put you in a room with 100 people and said, right, go and figure out who knows someone that's working in your sector, I think you'd probably come back with a big percentage of people that could introduce you to someone that could be that future candidate or that future client. But now I'm not suggesting you will rush out and start Facebook pages if you haven't got them already. Okay, but we just need to think about like, how are we using these tools? If we want to access the maximum number of people, then we've really got to consider this. You know, if you're not using Facebook right now and you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I should be, then, you know, as an individual, start to look at that, start to look at what other brands in your sector are working on, have a look at what groups are active on Facebook that you potentially should be taking part in and being part of that community on the platform. Probably, is anyone here kind of working in, so, you know, looking at graduate roles, that kind of stuff? David, anyone else? No? Okay. So TikTok is an interesting one in terms of accessing grads and early careers. Okay, so like I said, it's some, I really don't want you to suddenly go and create a TikTok account and start doing loads of stuff there, but just a little bit of research, a little bit of monitoring of that platform, because TikTok, whatever happens with TikTok, that form of content is staying with us. And I've been saying that for the last 18 months. We've got to pay attention to this content form, this format, because we are going to see it appearing on other platforms in the same way we saw stories go from Snapchat across to other platforms. Okay. Awesome. Right, I am, so I've just seen in the chat, David says, I never think about WhatsApp as a social platform and yet I spend my life on it. 100%. There are loads of apps and things right now that will help you to automate WhatsApp and Messenger. So, you know, that might be something that you want to have in the back of your mind. Is it going to be easy for candidates to talk to you through WhatsApp? If so, maybe you need a business WhatsApp account. You can have that on your website like a live chat. So, like I said, it's something to think about. Okay, so we know what our objectives are. We know what platforms we need to be on. We now need to think about, you know, what we're going to put out there. The reality is your content is your currency. Okay, we can talk all day about the opportunities we've got available. We can talk all day about the value we bring to our clients, but everyone's just going to get a bit bored. No one wants to be sold at. So we need to make sure that rather than just saying we can do this stuff, we actually demonstrate it, we evidence our expertise. And the great thing of doing this is you're creating content that you have ownership over. Ebooks, white papers, you know, they're things that are high value. You can put it on your website, you can have that available in exchange for an email address. It becomes transactional. And again, you know, it helps you to turn that Facebook follower into someone in your database. Blogs, fantastic from an SEO perspective to help boost your website, make your website more valuable. You don't want your website to purely be a brochure. You want it to be a living, breathing organism that is helping you to nurture people, that's helping you to generate leads into your business. You can look at creating webinars. You know, what we're doing right now is it's super easy and everyone's so familiar with Zoom now, whether it's something you're doing for marketing purposes and people are having to register to attend, or whether it's something you're doing for your clients, for your candidates in order to add additional value. Okay, it has massive, massive value. You can create videos. You can, create, all sorts of content that is going to offer training tips. You can offer your time in terms of, 30-minute calls and stuff like that, that's sort of consultancy calls. There's so much that you can do without actually saying, does anyone want to do this job? Okay, you don't need to worry about those CVs. Let us deal with that for you. Okay, we can talk about how fantastic we are at doing that great stuff. Okay, or give the knowledge away. Basically, if there's anything that you do that can be Googled, you may as well create some content around it and put it out there in the world. Because if you don't give them the answer, they're going to Google it anyway, right? So don't worry too much about holding stuff back. But when we're creating this content, there's so much content out there, isn't there? We want to make sure that we are the ones gaining attention in the feed. And the reality is that, every social media platform now works pretty much the same. What they want is meaningful interactions. Okay, they want people to be scrolling through and to stop on a post and take a moment to consume it. Okay, I use the term dwell time because this is something that LinkedIn has introduced, but the same thing happens elsewhere. So imagine you're going through LinkedIn and you see something like one of those carousel posts, like a PDF you can flick through. You pause on that post and you flick through to see what's there. Well, LinkedIn takes notice of the fact that you've paused on that. Okay, you're interested in that bit of content from Elliot. So next time Elliot posts, you want to see more of that. But the same thing's true on Instagram. Perhaps David's posted something on Instagram as Inspire, and I'm scrolling through and I'm kind of flicking, there's a few images there in that one post, and I'm flicking through those images to see what else is there. Instagram notices that I've paid attention to that post, that I've paused and I've looked. On Facebook, you're scrolling through, you see a video, you start watching it for a few seconds. This is what the algorithms want. So we need to provide content that ticks these boxes. They don't want us to just regurgitate content. They want us to have a voice, and they want us to be, present. They want us to be in. So therefore they want us to be consistent. There's this great thing with social media where if you don't post enough, you get penalized because you're not trying hard enough. But if you post too much, you get penalized because you're trying too hard. You're just a bloody spammer now. So we've got to keep the balance right. For most social media platforms, you've got to figure out what that looks like for your business. And it's a bit of testing and trial and error. But once we understand this is what we need to be serving in order to be part of it, then we can actually start to make sure we really stand out in that feed. Now, if I think about what worked in terms of the posts themselves, and LinkedIn actually did some research on this probably about 2 years ago now. Okay, they did a load of split testing on posts, and the stuff that works, the stuff that gains attention, it's bright colours. There's a reason why when you see a lot of Green Umbrella branding when we're out and about, there's always loads of bright, vivid colours around. Video, mixed media, we don't want loads of the same content. We don't want link after link after link after link. If you're using images, we want your branding to be, intact, but we don't want the same image over and over again. We want to see your faces, okay? Big smiles, whites of your eyes, familiar faces as well. And when you're scrolling through social media, even if it's just personal use, you're scrolling through and you see someone you recognize, it makes you stop. Okay, so it's really important that when we're thinking about the content we're putting out there, that we're in it. Okay, we want the bold text. We want the, if you've got a post, it's got loads and loads of text on it. People, I haven't got time to read that. I'll come back to it later, and they never do. So go with bold text. You can always direct them back to your website to read, like the full thing there. Just give them some headlines in the post itself. They want real life photos. They want, open questions that people can actually respond to. That works really well. And making sure you're responsive. The more responsive you are, the better your content performs as well. Okay, so these are all the things that gain attention in the feed. But in order for you to make sure you are appearing in the feed, we've got to ensure we're not just simply broadcasting. Okay, if we're just going back, my brand, my brand, my brand, I've said it already, people switch off, they don't want to be sold to. We have an 80-20 rule when it comes to our content. Okay, so 20% of what we put out there is the boring stuff that makes you money. Okay, 80% of the content we put out there is the stuff that engages, entertains, and educates. Okay, this is how to do what we do. People, they get confident in you. So actually when they've got the budget, they want to come to you. Or when it becomes overwhelming, they want to come to you. If they haven't got the time, they want to come to you. The 20% content that you put out there, like I said, the boring stuff that makes you money, is the tips on how to recruit. It's the news about the contract you've just won, or the new people joining your business, the partnerships you're building, the vacancies themselves. You know, this is all about your business. But if we can keep the balance right, when we look at the 80% content, okay, and we think about the content as your beans on toast, if we're educating, entertaining, engaging, then actually what happens is that engagement there means that more people see the 20%. Now, the reason we called it Beans on Toast strategy is there's a little story. So Julia, who's the founder of the business, she had beans on toast for her lunch. There's a cafe here in the building. She brought it up to the office, sat at her desk, and she had cheese on top of her beans on toast. And our designer turns around and he's like, Julia, well, what are you doing that for? It should be beans, then cheese, then toast, because the hot beans will melt the cheese. Julia's like, no, you put the cheese on top, cheese, beans, toast. Right, now, it's a silly throwaway post. But we took a photo, it went on Facebook, and suddenly 89 people are commenting on where the cheese should go. And I guarantee every single one of you right now is going, no, you know, cheese needs to be on top, or no, put it in the middle. Actually, if you put the cheese in the beans, then put it in the microwave, it's all mixed in, it's even better anyway. You know, or you're going, actually, do you know what, I really fancy some toast. Really fancy some toast. Right. And things like this gets everyone thinking, okay, and then they start commenting. Now, what happens is those people then see the boring stuff that makes you money because they've sent this signal to Facebook to say that they're interested in your brand, they're interested in your content. You know, we needed new pens. We got 5 samples, put them on a bit of white paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all of a sudden we've got 106 comments telling us what pens to buy. They were the worst pens we ever bought. They just exploded every time you use them. You know, those ones you press too hard and they just go everywhere. But again, we've now got 106 individuals that when we next post saying, why don't you get some coaching from us? Why don't we come in and train people in your business on how to use LinkedIn? Those people are seeing that content. So it's so important we get this balance right, 80-20. You know, if we think from a LinkedIn perspective, okay, the people that we are serving, what you're helping them with is filling those roles, building their teams, getting the right people into their businesses. But that's one of several pains that they're experiencing at the minute. Okay, and if you know your clients well enough, instead of kind of like just looking at that little bit there that we're concerned about, if we look a little bit bigger, we can talk about the things that are important to our client that we know well. And if we think a little bit bigger again about that industry, about that sector that we're serving, then actually we start to talk about stuff that our prospects are concerned about. And that in itself allows them, because we're talking in those conversations, we're part of that dialogue, they then start to notice who we are and they get pulled in closer and closer into being in our inner circle. This 80-20 thing is probably one of, if this is something you haven't seen or heard before, this is probably one of the biggest lessons that you'll get from this webinar, because as soon as you start to understand this and create content and put your updates out there in this way, that's when you start to see the shift. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on. So I kind of advise all this stuff and people go away and they're like, yeah, I'm doing it, Christina, I'm doing it, but I'm still not getting any opportunities. I haven't had any leads through the door. I haven't had any candidates through social media. No clients are like ringing and, you know, what is going on? And there's almost a list of questions we need to ask ourselves if we think that we're putting in 110% and still not getting the results. Okay. Number one, are you targeted? Have you really thought about who your ideal client, who your ideal candidate is? I had a conversation this morning. My first call was at 7:30 this morning, and I had a call with this guy, and he's really struggling in his business. I said, right, tell me about your ideal client. And he kept going off and telling me about the service that he offers. I was like, no. I've got this friend called Bob, and he's your ideal client. Tell me about Bob. And he just kept going off talking about, well, this is the service and this is the job that we'll be doing for Bob. And I was like, no. What does Bob read? What keeps Bob awake at night? You know, when Bob's asleep and he wakes up with that jolt, what is it he's thinking about? Where does Bob get his news from? Okay, what other projects is Bob going to be working on? Okay, and it's like, as soon as we can really make sure we are being super targeted, again, you know, sometimes that's the missing link. That's the reason why we're not getting these results. Yeah. Are we a robot or are we human? If we look at our content, if you look at the last 10 posts you put out on LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, whatever it's going to be, if I look at those 10 posts, 2 of them are going to be salesy, but the other 8, actually, how human are we being? Because people buy from people. Even if you're representing a brand, you need to kind of personify that brand through your social content as well. Use the people within the business to really communicate what's going on there. What's the perception that you've created? You know, have you created a perception where you're someone that people want to work with? Are you creating a perception through your content that actually you look after your candidates, you care about your clients? Is the perception out there that you just fill jobs, or is the perception out there that actually you have I can say I have a consultative approach, but is my content actually creating that perception? Is the evidence there? Are we present? Have we actually responded to things? Something breaks in the news today that's, you know, if I'm a tech recruiter, that delivery story today, I need to be talking about it today, not in 3 weeks' time. If people are commenting under my post, have I actually gone back to them and responded? Or is, you know, have I just left all these people hanging? Are we consistent? And we need to decide what consistent looks like for each social media platform that we're going to work on. But, you know, LinkedIn, you know, is it 3 months since we last put a post on the company page? You know, how have we been absent for 18 months? You know, that consistency is key. People will look at your social media as part of their due diligence, you know, and it's kind of like, actually, okay, we connected today, but if you haven't been showing up yourself, you're just one of my however many thousands of connections. We've got to think about that. We've got to think about how much are we contributing. I've talked to you about the content you're producing, but how often are you kind of going, right, these are 5 people I want to do business with. What are they putting on LinkedIn? What comments have I left on their content? You know, what pieces of content have I found that would be valuable to them, you know, of interest to them because it's about their sector that I've actually given to them directly. You know, I don't want anything from you, but I've just seen this and I think it might be useful for you. Here you go. Don't worry about responding. This is my gift to you. Don't put that bit, it sounds a bit cheesy. You know, have we remembered about these algorithms? Okay, have we actually considered those in what we're doing, or are we just going, oh crap, I need to put something out quick, I haven't posted for 3 weeks? You know, are we actually engaging? Now, I don't want you to spend 3 hours every day going, where should I put this link in the post? Or should I put it in a comment underneath? Or should I come back in an hour and edit it and put the link in there? You haven't got time for that. You need to be recruiting. Right, so don't overthink the little minutiae, just create really good content that you know answers the basics of what the algorithms require, and you're engaged, or because you're doing that, you create an engaged audience and they will do the rest for you. And then finally, are you following up? Those people that do comment, when you leave a comment on something else and you get those replies, the likes on your posts, the likes on the follows on the company page now that 12 months ago we couldn't see, and now we can. You know, have we actually done anything to follow up with those people? I sat with a client yesterday and I said, right, what are you doing to follow up with these? We've had like 150 new followers on their LinkedIn company page in the last month. They're a relatively new business. They've only got about 300-400 follows anyway. Like, what have you done to follow up with these people? Oh, like tumbleweed. Okay, right. Some of these people are your first connections. Great, you're connected to them already. Send them a message. Tell them, you really appreciate you following the company page. Thank you so much for the support. Let me know if there's ever anything I can do for you. You know, it starts a dialogue. Actually, those second and third connections that have now followed that page, what is she doing with those? Has she reached out and connected with those? Has she done a bit of digging, a bit of research? Are they now in her CRM as a possible lead? And it's like, actually, sometimes we don't get the result because, you know, marketing and sales need to align. They need to like dovetail together, but they are two separate things. And if we're not creating that dovetail moment, your marketing isn't going to get you results. So following up can, more often than not, it's like, so Christina, social media doesn't work. It does bloody work. Works for millions, billions of people across the globe. Social media isn't the problem, it's what you're doing with it. And more often than not, it's like, what are we doing to follow up? If I can fix that problem for a client, then all of a sudden they're like, social media is awesome. So like I said, you know, these are this list of things. These are my tips, if you like, for if someone comes to me and says it's not working, this is what I work on with that client to get those results, to get things turned around.